Please eat a lot. My mother-in-law said this with a smile, offering a plate in front of me. But I couldn't bring myself to accept it. Despite telling her that I have a severe egg allergy and can't eat eggs at all. She tries every trick in the book to feed them to me. Eating them could endanger my life. I tried to refuse, but she smiled brightly and said, "There are no eggs in this meal." Really? My name is Nicole. I'm a housewife living with my husband Patrick and our third-grade son Alex. We were living peacefully as a family of 3. But there was one thing I had to be careful about in my daily life. It is the fact that I have a severe egg allergy. When I was young, eating eggs caused hives all over my body and made the area around my mouth itch. After tests at the hospital, my allergy was confirmed. I tried eating a little bit under the doctor's instructions, but it didn't work. And although I was told that it might suddenly get better as I got older, it never improved even into adulthood. Therefore, I always have to be careful not to eat eggs. Having an allergy is not a bad thing, but it can be slightly inconvenient in daily life. When going out to eat, I have to look for restaurants that serve dishes without eggs, which makes me feel like I'm troubling my friends who dine with me, making it a bit of a hassle. My husband understands this and has said, "It's tough when the allergy symptoms kick in. I'll help as much as I can to ensure you don't accidentally eat anything harmful." I felt very relieved by his support. He mentioned that he saw a classmate suffer from an allergic reaction when he was young and he couldn't forget it. Indeed, those who have seen an allergic reaction know how painful it can be. I prepare our meals at home, so I carefully separate my own food from that of my husband and son to avoid mistakes. When we dine out, my husband actively checks with the staff if the dishes contain eggs, which I appreciate very much. He said he doesn't want our son to grow up forcing someone with allergies to eat what they shouldn't. And he has explained my allergy to our son in a way he can understand. Thanks to that, our son quickly understood and said, "Mom can't eat eggs because it makes her suffer, so I'll keep them away." He shows consideration by pushing egg dishes away from me, which makes me feel happy about his growth. Our son loves his grandmother and always looks forward to seeing her. She also dotes on him and often calls, which becomes a break from his studies and homework. I am grateful to her for that. However, since my father-in-law passed away, the always smiling and kind mother-in-law has lost her energy and started saying, "I don't feel like cooking without my husband." After finishing our usual phone conversations, she always asks, "When are you coming back next?" I can't immediately answer. So I end the call by saying, "I'll discuss it with Patrick and get back to you." I really want to let our son see her as much as possible. But my mother-in-law lives deep in the mountains, a 3-hour drive away. So it's difficult to visit unless my husband can take a substantial break. So, we discussed it. "Hey, Patrick. About your mother. She's been asking when we can see her next on recent calls. She might be feeling lonely since your father passed away. I'm worried about her health, so can we make time to see her regularly?" After dinner, when things had calmed down, I brought up the topic. My husband said, "Yeah, I'm also worried about Mom, and I want to visit her more often. But I'm concerned that you have to be cautious about her allergy during meals. I told your mother about the allergy at the beginning of our marriage, so I don't think I need to be too nervous about it. Besides, we can solve it by bringing our own deli dishes. Alex also wants to see her, so why don't we plan a visit during his long school holidays?" At that time, I thought that my mother-in-law would surely understand. what an allergy is and what symptoms it causes. When I suggested it, my husband agreed. So we decided to make visiting during the summer and winter holidays a regular event. When I told my mother-in-law over the phone that we would visit during the summer and winter breaks, she was delighted and looked forward to it every day. The next winter break, we visited her. That day, my mother-in-law entertained us with lots of homemade dishes. And both my husband and son's eyes sparkled. Initially, I told her that we would bring deli dishes because she doesn't cook much when she's alone, but she insisted on cooking, respecting her wish. My mother-in-law, with a joyful smile, seemed to enjoy cooking for others, while I was excited to eat someone else's cooking after a long time. I didn't want to cause concern by having an allergic reaction later. So I made sure to check if the dishes contained eggs. They seemed fine, and when I double-checked with my mother-in-law, she reassured me, I haven't used eggs in any of the dishes, so it's safe. I gratefully enjoyed the meal. The homemade dishes were so delicious that I couldn't stop eating. And my mother-in-law was surprised but pleased, saying, I'm happy you're eating a lot. While my husband and son and I were enjoying the delicious meal, the situation changed drastically 2 hours later. I started to develop hives and breathing difficulties, and although I had a bad feeling, I didn't have time to think as the symptoms worsened. My husband quickly took out an EpiPen from our luggage, which alleviated the symptoms. I was glad I had it with me, as I always take care to avoid eggs. And it had been a long time since I had such a reaction. Our son was quite surprised and immediately came over, asking, Mom, are you okay? Aren't you in pain? My mother-in-law was in the bath when the reaction occurred, so I didn't have to worry her unnecessarily. But I wondered why this happened since she had assured me that she hadn't used eggs in any of the dishes. Thinking I might have accidentally eaten something intended for my husband and son, I approached her calmly after her bath. I had an allergic reaction earlier, which wouldn't have happened unless I had ingested eggs. To avoid any dangerous mistakes, could you please tell me exactly which dishes contain eggs from now on? Her response was unexpectedly harsh as she glared at me, a look I hadn't seen before, and snapped, You're just using your allergy as an excuse. You're just picky because you're too old to be throwing fits, so I tried to fix your attitude. I was stunned, and my usually gentle husband gave his mother a stern look, saying, Mom, while you were in the bath, Nicole suffered terribly from hives and breathing difficulties. Allergies can be life-threatening. Could you please be more careful? However, she was unwilling to listen, even to her own son. Instead, she dismissed the concerns, saying, Everyone eats eggs. It's ridiculous to die from them, that just doesn't happen. My husband got angry to defend me, and she heatedly accused me of manipulating Patrick against her, saying, You're turning my own son against me. What a terrible daughter-in-law you are. Seeing that further argument was futile, the matter was dropped. But my mother-in-law seemed to think her son had sided with her because he didn't argue back. Observing my silent husband, she smugly remarked, No matter how much you defend your wife, in the end, you'll listen to your mother. I could tell that my husband was just dumbfounded and had nothing more to say. He suggested that we might stop visiting his mother. But she had always been kind to our son. Although our son knew about my allergy incident, he was unaware that his grandmother was the cause and still loved her dearly. I felt it would be unfair to completely cut off their interaction. So I proposed that I simply not visit anymore, though my mother-in-law kept insisting that I should come too. Deviously, she would tell our son to say, "Mommy, Grandma said you should come too." Unable to ignore my son's words, I reluctantly showed my face once in a while. During those infrequent visits, she continued to prepare dishes with eggs. But I managed to fill up on pickles and oatmeal. She noticed and complained, "Don't just eat pickles, try the dishes I've made too." I was desperately holding back the urge to shout at her, blaming her for my limited food options. Despite these thoughts, traumatized by my initial allergic reaction, I resolved never to eat her cooking again. I overate yesterday and my stomach hasn't settled. "Maybe it's my age, but you can eat a lot, so you must be very youthful." I deflected, focusing on conversation to avoid being pressed to eat. I kept the conversation light, discussing our son's school and my husband's work, topics of interest to her. I continued to claim a lack of appetite at subsequent meals to avoid her cooking, which was becoming mentally exhausting. As the visits to my in-laws grew increasingly burdensome, my mother-in-law continued to call frequently, looking forward to our next visit. "Is it summer break next? I can't wait for it to get warmer." While I felt utterly fed up, I casually responded, "Spring will be here before you know it," dreading the countdown until our next obligatory visit. As busy days went by, summer break quickly approached, and we were due for another family visit to the in-laws. When we arrived, my mother-in-law greeted my husband and son enthusiastically at the door. "Welcome, Patrick, Alex," but she barely made eye contact with me. I couldn't understand why she would insist on inviting someone she disliked. Although she was still cold to me, she continued to dote on our son, which was enough for me. My son, excited to share his catch from a fishing trip with friends, brought shrimp as a gift for his grandmother. "Grandma, I caught these shrimp recently. It was my first catch, so I saved them to bring to you," he said as he handed them to her. Delighted, she exclaimed, "Oh, did Alex catch these? Amazing. Thank you," and happily took the shrimp to the kitchen. Usually eating only mountain-harvested foods, my mother-in-law was thrilled with the shrimp, a rare treat for her. Gifts from family were always appreciated, but something directly from her grandson seemed especially precious. I was relieved to see her smile. As she began preparing dinner, I followed her into the kitchen, boldly suggesting, "Mother-in-law, would you like some help cooking? I really enjoyed the meal last time and would love to learn your family recipes." While part of my intention was to learn from her culinary skills, my main goal was to ensure she didn't use eggs in my portion. However, my strategy fell flat as she promptly refused, saying, "I prefer to do the housework alone. I don't like my routine being disrupted, so please rest." Reluctantly backing down to avoid further annoyance, I left the kitchen. Once again, the atmosphere between us turned awkward. I planned to find an excuse not to eat dinner that evening. While pondering this, my mother-in-law approached and said, "Nicole, I'm sorry for scaring you with the egg dishes last time. I've been told off by Patrick because you always eat just pickles. I've made something different for you today, so it's safe. Eggs are definitely not included, so please eat with peace of mind." After saying that a bit abruptly, my mother-in-law quickly went back to the kitchen. Although I felt happy, I still couldn't trust her with the food, so I pretended to eat, saying, "Thank you for making a separate dish just for me. I'll enjoy it," and then discreetly passed it to my husband to eat. "It doesn't taste like eggs," my husband muttered softly, making sure his mother couldn't hear. Just to be sure, he went to check the kitchen and saw my mother-in-law taking a break, pulling tea out of the fridge. Seeing my husband, she casually mentioned, "Are you hungry? I'm about to make something for you and Alex, so just wait a bit." Then my husband exclaimed, "Ah, I found it." Rushing to the kitchen, I saw what he had discovered, eggshells that were clearly not yet dried, suggesting recent use. My husband was furious, confronting her. "Mom, what is this about? Did you put eggs in Nicole's dish again?" She seemed panicked, clearly not expecting to be caught. "No, it's not what you think. Those were from this morning. They have nothing to do with Nicole's dinner," she tried to bluff. However, I had checked the kitchen before she started preparing dinner, and knew there had been no eggshells then. "Please, just be honest with me. The kitchen was spotless before you started cooking, wasn't it?" I pressed. Finally resigning to the truth, she began to admit slowly. "I'm sorry. I thought if you could see the eggs, you wouldn't eat it. So I mixed them in without making them noticeable." Hearing this, I was too shocked to speak. The detail she described next was horrifying. She had minced the eggs into very fine pieces and mixed them into the meat, then colored it with sauce to conceal them completely. It saddened me deeply to realize she despised me enough to go to such lengths. Instead of showing remorse, she retorted, "It's rude not to eat what someone has prepared." With the atmosphere at dinner being incredibly tense, I realized it was pointless to argue further. I resigned myself to eating the shrimp Alex had brought, grateful for something other than pickles. Alex's shrimp are delicious. It's amazing that he caught such tasty shrimp. I attempted to lighten the mood. However, my shrimp-loving mother-in-law snatched my shrimp to eat herself, leaving Alex silent and upset. I felt terrible for ruining what could have been a pleasant time. I wondered if staying silent would have been better, overwhelmed with guilt. My frustration with her repeated attempts to feed me egg dishes, and the constant vigilance to protect myself had left me exhausted. My husband, having witnessed all this, suggested we leave. As we prepared to go, about an hour after dinner, my mother-in-law suddenly started vomiting and began shaking violently, with hives appearing all over her body. My son was crying, and my husband was shocked. But I quickly called an ambulance, suspecting an allergic reaction. At the hospital, it was confirmed that she had developed a severe allergy to shrimp. Fortunately, she wasn't in grave danger, but the incident had taken its toll on her energy. I asked her why she had tried so hard to hide eggs in my food, and she confessed she had thought my egg allergy was merely a dislike. She believed that hiding eggs in other foods would help me gradually get used to them and cure the allergy. She proudly recalled how she had helped Patrick overcome his dislike of vegetables by mixing them into dishes when he was younger. Frustrated with her confusion between dislikes and allergies, I arranged for her to hear directly from a doctor about the dangers of allergies. Can allergies really be cured by eating more of the allergen? When I asked the doctor, he looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Indeed, some people may outgrow their allergies, but this is mostly in cases involving children. There is a treatment method that involves gradually increasing the amount one can eat, but it should always be done under a doctor's supervision, with great caution. Moreover, in cases of severe allergies, it is extremely dangerous to eat the allergen based on one's own judgment." Glancing over at my mother-in-law, I noticed she was looking down guiltily, but I felt relieved that she finally understood. Following this, the doctor continued to educate her about allergies, and she truly began to comprehend their danger for the first time. Particularly impactful were the doctor's words, Deliberately making someone with an allergy eat the allergen is akin to attempted murder. The actions you've taken cannot simply be dismissed as disciplining your daughter-in-law or correcting dislikes. What you've been doing was essentially trying to kill your daughter-in-law multiple times. These words seemed to deeply resonate with her, marking a significant change in her understanding and attitude. In the hospital room, my mother-in-law apologized to me, saying, "I'm truly sorry for saying that you were just being fussy for not eating. I'm sorry for not researching allergies after hearing about your egg allergy. Now that I've experienced the terror of an allergy myself, I understand how serious it is, and I promise I will never try to make you eat eggs again." Experiencing these symptoms, which were the worst I've ever felt, has helped me truly understand how you feel. Having developed a severe shrimp allergy, which led her to vomit and almost faced death, she expressed regret for her past actions and apologized. Since then, my mother-in-law's harassment has stopped. This change was largely due to my son witnessing me suffering after eating egg dishes, which shocked him significantly. As a result, he grew distant from his grandmother, and we no longer visit my mother-in-law's house. I still find it hard to forgive her for everything she has done, so I feel it's okay not to visit for the time being. My mother-in-law occasionally calls and says, "It's very hard not being able to eat my favorite shrimp. Now, I have to check all my meals to make sure they don't contain shrimp." I didn't realize how difficult allergies could be, and she keeps apologizing. If she truly changes her attitude, I might consider visiting again. But for now, my priority is caring for my son, who had to witness his family members suffer from allergic reactions twice.